I can give Kong Arnie is that habang tumatagal ito, mas nagiging mahirap ang sitwasyon mo.
Kung kayo na ang humiling na umuwi ako, mas mahihirapan ako humindi dahil mas may authority kayo makabigay ng proteksyon sa akin.
Justice Secretary Boying Remulla has revealed the identity of another alleged mastermind in the killing of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo. The DOJ chief maintains, though, that Congressman Arnie Teves is still considered a mastermind in the Degamo killing.
Yun nga, kumbaga sa sine, siya yung director tsaka casting director. Hindi lang ito sine kasi totoo na nangyari ito. While Congressman Teves is the executive producer of it.
The camp of suspended Congressman Arnie Teves calls on the government officials to tread carefully with their statements.
To the leaders, to the heads of our departments, the ILG, DOJ, do not make any precipitate statements. Hindi kami humingi ng special treatment. Pero sana, patas lang. Walang bias, walang prejudice.
The murder case of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo is still unfolding. While the DOJ says that this case is already closed, its primary suspect is still nowhere to be found. And not a single criminal case has been filed against the alleged mastermind, Congressman Arnie Teves, over the Degamo slaying. Let's talk about this case again as we sit down with Justice Secretary Boying Remulla tonight on the Chiefs. And welcome to the Thursday edition of the Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Here with me in the studio, Robbie Lampay of One News, and of course, Ana Marie Pamintuan, the editor-in-chief of the Philippine Star. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Good evening.
Marami tayong story ngayon.
Oo.
Marami nga. Oh.
It's a rich Friday. Thursday.
Before we get into what we will be discussing, I mean, among other things, warrant of arrest versus ex-Bucor chief, di ba? Bantag at
Ayun
saka
nga
ang aide niya na si Ricardo Sulweta.
So you have the Bantag, Zulweta, and then you have the Degamo.
And you have si Congressman Arnie Teves ready na raw to face the senators pero remotely.
Hindi face the music, face the senators. Not even face Congress.
That's not the invitation of Senator Bato, no? Bato de la Rosa.
Definitely. Well, at this point, what other option do you have? Short of a possible deportation, but we don't know where that that government currently stands on that.
And how long it will take for that to happen? Kasi nga, wala pa namang case.
Hindi, yun na nga, yung murder cases in 2019.
Ay nilang gamitin yun.
Oo nga.
So in the meantime, pending yung ano.
Hindi, kailangan mo lang naman na medyo malakas na case, di ba, to request the government.
Yeah,
That's
that's
Cambodia, that's a member of association.
Kaya nga na pinag-usapan natin isang gabi, there's more than one option.
Oo
Di ba?
nga.
Hindi lang naman tong kasong to yung pwedeng
yun na nga.
tuntungan niya.
Anyway,
Tingnan natin.
dami pag-uusapan at ang guest natin ngayong gabi ay si Justice Secretary mismo, si Jesus Crispin Remulla. We will bring him in right after this short break, so please stay with us. And as promised, we have Justice Secretary Boying Remulla here on the Chiefs tonight. Secretary Remulla, thank you for saying yes to us again and welcome back to the program.
At magandang gabi sa inyong magkakasama dyan, Ami and Robbie.
Yes, sir.
Magandang gabi po.
Evening, sir. Sayang, namimiss ka namin, sir. Sana masayang usapan pag nandito rin kayo. Pero anyway, we understand. Sir, of course, the big story today, developing story today is the warrant of arrest against Gerard Bantag. Any idea where he is? Meron bang feelers at all? O talagang mahanap natin siya with the arrest warrant?
We have a general idea of where he is. We have been following his movements for the past few days. For the past few weeks, actually. But I haven't spoken to those doing that. But of course, it's our job to know where the persons may be before, because that's part of the job that we do in the Department of Justice.
Sir, if I understand correctly, this warrant is for a charge that is without bail, di ba? Is that correct?
Yes, it's a non-bailable offense. Murder is non-bailable.
What about Richard Sulweta? Hindi na siya nakita, no? For a long time now. Do you have also any idea where he might be?
Yes, also. This is also being followed by our people. We're trying to keep track of their movements. That's why we have a general idea of their locations.
Wala bang feelers from Mr. Sulweta? Kasi siyempre alam naman niya, wanted siya eh.
Wala pa ho. Usually ganyan naman ho ang behavior pag they're part of they're the head of the criminal activity. Kung sila pa yung nasa ibabaw, hindi naman sila talaga nakikipag-usap or ganun po talaga ang behavior ng mga suspects na ganyan.
Sir, Secretary Remulla, let's talk about the Percy Lapid case in general. Of course, the perception of people, the understanding of people is basta may gumalaw dahil may gumalaw sa nalaman natin at mga natutunan natin. What are the fundamental developments and progress in the Percy Lapid investigations?
Well, basically, we were holding on to the suspects. Many of the suspects who were part of the crime are with us. The first part of the crime being the gunman, Joel Escorial, is with us. And the second part of the crime, the killing of Dun Villamor, the people from Muntinlupa, the inmates, the PDLs, are also with us. So we have the testimonies ready and available for the courts to listen to when we present the cases against them.
Pero sir, if I recall correctly, yung ang ating mga testigo will only go as far as implicating directly si Mr. Sulweta. They have not, if I recall correctly, they have never been able to meet directly with Bantag to talk about this issue. So, in other words, sir,
to get there, the questions and answers will be all presented in court for the judges to listen to. Kaya I will not go into the details of the testimonies. It's just that we already have a case, and the court has found reason to issue a warrant of arrest.
yes, sir.
So that is where we are right now. So it's our job now to present the case before the court, and of course to arrest them. Arrest them as soon as we can.
Yes, sir. Well, sir, I only bring that up to emphasize the point of the importance of getting, number one, Sulweta himself, and number two, getting Sulweta to testify, at least in favor of the charges that were filed. Because it appears that he's the only guy who ties everything together with the gangsters.
In the history of man, when you talk about criminal activity and movements of criminal syndicates, when these things happen, the Godfather hardly speaks. The Godfather is never heard, but they are convicted because of the testimonies of the other people under them. So that's part of it. The soldiers are enough, usually, to convict the Godfathers and the people who order the movements of people. Hindi talaga ano yan. Sa ganyan talaga sa history ng crime, wala naman talagang mahirap naman talagang kubuhan ng ganong klaseng ebidensya na diretso-diretso. Pero sa lahat, from human experience, who the Godfather is, and that things happen because of the Godfather. That is, of course, referring to the masterminds of the case.
Well, in the meantime, what's the latest on there was yung digging dun sa Bucor, di ba, in the NBP, and there were reports that you are planning to file maybe corruption cases related to that digging. Ano po yung bago ron?
No, I mean, ano yun eh. They damage the government property.
Yes.
Unang-una. Pangalawa, we're still establishing the case kasi ang movement kasi ng earth na yan, kailangan magkaroon tayo ng geological study kung saan tinambak.
Yes, sir.
General Katapang is on top of it. He knows that it's part of the cases that we have to file. Kasi abuse of abuse of authority yan. We do not want to tolerate any such abuses by anybody. Ang hinukay nila, dinamage nila yung property because naghuhukay sila ng treasure, dapat yan, ibalik nila sa dati. Kung hindi, pagbayaran nila, kung hindi, mananagot sila sa batas.
But sir, there are two aspects there: the damage to the property, and as you said, the motive here of digging for treasure. The damage to property, that's clear. I mean, that kita naman ng lahat ng tao yan. But on the motive itself, ano po yung where are we on pinning down the motives and the equivalent charges, given this, the motivation here to look for treasure?
Well, looking for treasure, alam mo naman under the under the civil code, all of these treasures belong to the government. Yan po ay dapat nire-report po sa gobyerno. Pag hindi na-report, it's considered an illegal activity. Kulang yan. And then, of course, yung ginawa nilang damage, naging unstable yung soil, may mga assets ang Bureau of Corrections na nasisira at ngayon nagko-collapse. Kaya yung meron pong liability yan, Robbie. Of course, it's still the case build-up stage. Yan po ay talagang pag-aaralan pa ng mga nag-imbestigaron natin kung ano magandang kaso ipa-file. Kasi marami na hong naka-file na kaso eh. May ibang kaso na naka-file against Director General Bandag. Kaya isa lang po yan sa menu of cases na lalabas sapagkat marami ho talagang krimen na nakumit, marami ho paglabag sa batas na nangyari.
Sir, curious lang ako, sir. Yung treasure hunting na yan ba, was that official? Ibig sabihin, was there paperwork involved there? Were there filings involved there? Or was it meant to, for example, meant to be underground, not literally, but figuratively?
It's supposed to be an underground activity. But they were using government resources
Yes,
doing
sir.
this. Yung heavy equipment ginamit dyan ay pag-aari ng Bucor. Ang heavy equipment na pinurchase po ng Bucor ang ginamit dyan. At yung mga, ang gasolina po ng gobyerno ang ginamit, pag nung tinakbo po yung pinaghukayan na tinatawag natin panambak, na may VAT din po yan sa pera. Kaya yan po, kasama ng po yan sa kaso, sa mga kaso, sa menu of cases na naroon against Director General Bantag, and to a certain extent, of course, Ricardo Soberta.
Yes, sir. I meant to ask whether there seemed to have been an intent to hide whatever would have been recovered, if at all, in terms of treasure for personal gain, instead of declaring it as official, and therefore any findings would have been.
There's bad faith. There's bad faith. We can always we can deduce bad faith from what happened. Of course, that is not our focus here. And ang focus talaga natin, yung murder pa rin ni Percy Lapid, at yung subsequent murder ni June Villamor in covering up for the murder of Percy Lapid.
What about yung dozens of cadavers na nagkatambak-tambak dun sa funeral parlor? Have we determined kung natural causes lahat yun or baka murder cases that?
We sent them for autopsy by Dr. Fortune. Dr. Fortune. And she had findings that are important to us in the Department of Justice. Ang unang-una makikita natin dito, kasi marami diyang mummified na, tumigas na sila. Mahirap na silang hiwain para makita ang loob niya. Pero marami po dyan na buksan. Mahigit 50 po yan na cadaver na nabuksan for autopsy. Marami hong findings na lumalabas na mahalaga po sa amin sa corrections. Number one, siguro, yung malnutrition na naging sakit ng mga tao dyan ay very clear. Marami sa kanila nagkaroon ng sakit dahil sa hindi sapat ang pagkain nila. Pangalawa, maraming kaso na sakit na hindi na ma-monitor kasi walang healthcare na maayos. Maraming cases na detect sa mga cadavers na nakita. At iba't iba pa mga sakit na nakita na dapat sana ay magawa ng paraan sa pagpapatakbo ng ating correction system. It's a massive undertaking that we have to do to make our correction system at par with the world's best. Kasi tayo ay way behind tayo sa pagdating dito. Mababa ang budget ng pagkain. At hindi lang yan. To a certain extent, yung corruption na nangyari dyan sa pagkain, yan din na nag-lead sa malnutrition. Tapos yung coping mechanisms, it causes more corruption. But it's a vicious cycle in the correction system that is there for us to appreciate so that we can improve from where we are.
So linawin ko lang, no murder cases dun sa mga cadavers na yon.
Yes, sir. No
Wala
indication,
namang
sir, of malice.
foul play.
Maybe it was too late to be able to see everything. Kasi we could not take toxicology tests anymore. They were too dried up already. So wala kaming nakitang murder cases. It doesn't mean walang nangyari. Kasi nga, yung usong way of killing sa loob ay yung plastic.
Yes.
Yung
Suffocation.
ang hininga yung tao. Kaya hindi nakikita talaga on the outset unless meron talagang magsabi, mahirap talaga makita.
Okay. Kabig tayo ng konti
Kabig na.
sa
Yes, sir.
isa pang kaso.
Dami.
Move on sa docket.
Ito,
Okay,
sige.
Justice Secretary, we also want to ask ano po yung latest dito sa Digamo murder? I mean, we've from you very early on you said in the police, the Justice Department said this is case closed. We've identified the suspects. We have suspects in mind. Speaking to what you said earlier, the soldiers we know they're in hand. Mabilis ang pagkaka-aresto dyan. You said we know the motives, and you've even gone as far as to say na malinaw kung sino ang mastermind dito. But where are we right now? Given that at the end of that, the question always to you is, nasa na ang kaso? When do we actually see the charges?
Ano yan, Robbie, yun ang na-explain ko lagi sa mga kaibigan nating media sa DOJ. We have to be patient with what we do. We have to be very deliberate. And things cannot happen overnight. We have to evaluate everything properly. But of course, we're choosing itong sa mastermind. We're still looking at the cases that we can possibly file against the masterminds. We're still investigating 2 other people who may have had something to do, who may have acted as accomplices or accessories to the crimes. Marami ho kaming pina-check pa hanggang ngayon. That's why sa Monday nga, meron kaming scheduled na hearing sa Senate. We're thinking of telling the Senate, hold off muna, kasi hindi pa naman tapos sa criminal investigation.
Okay.
We know that even if we already know who were responsible, how it was done, there are many details that still escape us. Ito ngayon kasama sa investigation na ina-undertake ng NBI at ng ating intelligence agencies kasi hindi ganun kasimple ang mag-imbestiga ng ganitong klaseng activity.
Dapat.
But we just have to be patient. Ganun talaga ang imagine, itong kay Director General Bantag, nangyari ito ng October ba? October. Pero kailan nangyari? Kailan ba na-file ang kaso na issue na warrant of arrest? After 6 months na. Talagang tagal po ang pagtakbo. Say 5 months. Matagal po talaga ang pagtakbo ng gulong ng hustisya. Pero gumugulong po yan, dahan-dahan. Pero kami ho, talagang we're just being very patient and professional with what we do here. Hindi ho pwede pa.
I don't know if this makes it simpler, but let's take it a notch down from a warrant of arrest or actual charges. Let's just take it on one shared interest among all the institutions you mentioned. The DOJ, the police, Congress, the Senate, and the House, both, they just want Arnie Teves back in the country. Now, you've said, DOJ has said, we know he's in Cambodia, so just a question of how do we repatriate him back to this country? Kung hindi man tong kaso ng Digamo, why not the 2019 murder charges? How would you compare what we know, what we have on those 2019 murder charges versus what we have on the Digamo investigations?
Actually, I have not, Robbie, honestly speaking, I haven't really concentrated on the 2019 murder cases. I'm looking at the Digamo cases kasi yun ang inabutan ko. Pero itong 2019, of course, comes in as it creates a pattern of behavior na meron pa tayong nakikita iba pa na mga kaso na pwede i-file but we have to investigate and do case build-up. Ang mahalaga lang talaga rito sa kasong ito ay when we evaluate everything, marami talagang detalye na kailangan pumasok pa para mas kompleto yung narrative na ibibigay namin sa korte. Kaya yun po yung nandun kami ngayon. We're still looking at 2 or 3 other people who have had something to do, may have had something to do with all of these murders from the preparatory stage. Kaya yan po, ingatan po namin na mabuild na po yung kaso na yan at makakuha kami ng ebidensya pang iba sa mga tao na tumutulong noon sa mga mastermind.
Well,
So,
sir,
yun po.
yes, sir. Well, sir, it's good that you emphasize the need to be patient and deliberate before the filing of the actual charges with regard to the Digamo killing against Congressman Arnulfo Teves. However, it's been 2 weeks or more since you publicly identified the executive producer of this murder. Parang kumbaga yung Mother Lily ng buong plot. So people are also asking if we're taking that long before we file charges, haven't we already exposed too much and telegraphed all the moves and what the DOJ already has?
And it's part of the transparency that we have to undertake in the job that we're doing here. We just have to be transparent. That's why we update the media that is here every day waiting for us to update them about the development. Kasi kung mag-iintay tayo ng talagang tapos na bago tayo mag-brief, parang sasabihin nila kino-close door namin o kaya we're not being transparent about it. Kaya on a daily basis, pag meron development, we try to brief the media about it. And sabi ko nga, talagang yan ang due process, Ed. Due process really entails the respect of rights of people. Kaya hindi ho mabilis yan. You may be impatient. Many people are impatient about but ang tagal-tagal. Pero yun po yung batas eh. Yun ang mga pag-iingat na nakasaad sa ating saligang batas, sa ating rules of court, sa ating pong jurisprudence na dapat maingat po tayo sa pagtrato ng mga taong suspected of crimes. Kaya lang, may mga panahon kasi na kailangan sabihin na natin sa tao kung ano nangyayari. Kaya sinasabi namin yan. Kasi nga, itong pattern of impunity cannot remain the same. Kailangan na i-address po namin directly ang pattern of impunity na para bang wala nang mananagot na mataas na tao sa lipunan natin. We will not allow that to happen. That's why we are telling the people what we know to be the truth. And we will prove it in court when the time comes. But it is our job to really apprise the people because the people, marami hong nangangambay. Marami hong takot na takot sa loob ng Negros Oriental. Natakot na takot baka makabalik pa ito. Baka sila naman ang balingan, sila ang gantihan. Siyempre, kailangan i-assure po namin sila na hindi po nakakawala sa amin ang mga detalye. Ngunit kinakailangan ng tuloy-tuloy lang po ang aming trabaho.
Well, siyempre sir, pabor sa amin dahil nagkaroon kami ng story. Pero in the end, of course, yung tanong ng mga tao also is, hindi ba nakakapaghanda yung kabila in making the full disclosures that you have been doing in the past 3 weeks? Hindi ba nakakapaghanda yung grupo ni Teves?
Just to illustrate that point, sir, is it possible that all the statements very early on were precisely what led him to leave the country and essentially now fly to a country where we don't have an extradition treaty?
Well, ano yan eh. Yung paghahanda ng mga taong ganyan. Kasama yan kasi it goes with the territory. Kung yan ang pinasok mo, handa ka na maharapin yung mga ginawa mo. And noong nangyari ito, wala nga siya sa Pilipinas eh. He wasn't in the country when this happened. He was in America. Kaya nga alam naman, very deliberate naman yung ginawa nila. This was a plot that was hatched a long time before it happened. Kaya alam naman natin yan eh. Yung kanilang paghahanda, natural yan. And remember, guys, they have all the money in the world to pay good lawyers. No? Lahat ng pera pwede na ubusin pa sa magagaling na abogado. Ang assurance na namin dito, hindi po kami itinag sa ginagawa namin kasi ito po yung trabahong tinanggap namin sa taong bayan na pangalagaan ng ating sistema ng hustisya. Kaya yung mga fears na yan, natural fears po yan sa isang lipunan na katulad natin na alam natin pera marami nagagawang milagro. Pero kami hindi ko may papayag. Gagawin namin ang trabaho namin dito.
Okay, I think we need to take a break.
Sir, if you don't mind, we'll just have a short break. We will continue our discussion with Secretary Remulla right after this very short break. So the Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to the Chief. Still with us, Justice Secretary Boying Remulla. Secretary, bago natin iwanan si Mr. Degamo, we have unconfirmed reports, nabanggit na nga that he's in Cambodia and the spokesman for the DOJ said baka daw pwedeng ipa-deport na lang siya since we don't have an extradition treaty. What's the latest on this? Are you actually initiating a request for his deportation? If confirmed nga dahil hindi pa naman daw specifically identified kung nasan siya in Cambodia, if he is there at all.
Well, actually, he has movements within the Southeast Asian mainland. Tumatawid siya minsan ng Thailand. At I think that tumatawid din siya ng Vietnam. Yan po yung aming alam dyan. Now, when it comes to extradition and to deportation, those are matters that we will act on when the cases have been filed. Kasi yun nga yung, yung process talaga nito ay talagang painstaking talaga to, that we have to file the right cases para magawa namin yung dapat mangyari para magkaroon po ng hustisya sa kasong ito. And we are considering all options. We have with us also a menu of cases that we can file against Teves. Kaya lang we have to be very deliberate there. Kaya we're trying to consider all options possible to be able to make things to make his extradition or deportation from another country come out in a better light. Ganun talaga yan. I mean, we just have to be patient. And that's what I tell each of people here every day. Yung kay Bantag, araw-araw tinatanong niya ako, sabi ko, hintayin nyo lang, it will take a few months, it will happen that way, because that's how the law operates. Wala hong overnight dito eh.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. Eh. That's why, hintay lang tayo. And things will happen, don't worry about it. We are on top of it, and we are considering all available legal options and legal weapons that we can use to win this case through and through, including taking custody of those who are running away from the law.
Well,
Pero, sir-
in the meantime, haharap na daw siya remotely sa Senate on the invitation of Senator Bato de la Rosa. And his lawyer is saying, sabi niya, bakit daw hindi na lang payagan muna kahit yung ganyan ng remote testimony, or that he just be represented by counsel in answering kung ano man yung accusation na ipa-file sa kanya ng DOJ.
It goes against the rules of the Senate and the House to let counsel speak. Hindi po payagan talaga yan namin. He's testifying in video. Well, it's an option left to Congress. And it's something, the technology and the way that the world is now makes us think of other developments in the legal system also. Kasi kaya yan, maraming ang bagong rules. Even the Code of Professional Responsibility takes note of social media as a part of the universe already of law. So, tingnan natin. If there testifies, if it's going to improve his case, so be it. Pero I doubt if it will improve anything. Kasi isang malinaw na malinaw dyan, people who do not face up to the acts that they did, or people who run away from a warrant, actually, sa history po ng mundo, alam natin, most of these people are guilty. Flight is an indication of guilt. Because if one is innocent, they should be willing to face the music and profess their innocence clearly in a court of law. Kung di nila kayang gawin yan, then ibig sabihin, tinatakbuhan po nila yung responsibility nila na sa pagpatay kay Governor Digamo at 8 pang tao, at nanakit pa sila na 17 pa na very serious injuries, multiple murder, multiple frustrated murder, things that are not done by people who should be holding responsible positions.
Sir, pero I mean, ano ko lang, just taking the side here of for a moment of Mr. Teves and his counsel, the discipline that you speak of and the due process that you said that we all have to be patient for, it cuts both ways, di po ba? Because on that side, that's where these lawyers are saying na, well, I hear what you're saying, that flight is an indication of guilt, but kasuhan nyo muna. I mean, file the charges, then count the days of I consider the flight from there, not from the time na wala pang kaso.
Robbie, may kaso lang nga siya sa di ba? Sa multiple murder,
Yeah.
sa double murder na nangyari 2019. Ito naman kasi, you're a public official, ikaw ang pinagbibintangan, ba't hindi ka umarap? Pwede ka naman umuwi. Pwede mo itadahilan, natatakot ka. Mali yun, Robbie. We live with danger every day in our lives as public officials. Mabigat talaga ang trabaho namin.
Okay.
And, well, if you want to take that side, so be it. But sa akin, the side of the people is more important. And his rights are secondary to the rights of those who were murdered.
Okay. Sir, speaking of those rights, I want to zoom out a bit. And again, this still goes to what you said you want to see in the Department of Justice. May memo kayo noong February advising and reminding all prosecutors na ang standard natin ngayon is reasonable certainty of conviction. So on the one hand,
Yes.
of course, we want to know where are we in building up that reasonable
Certainty.
certainty of conviction on these cases. But I also want to ask you immediately, meron po ba tayong immediate impact from that memo in terms of the workload of your prosecutors, the cases that are being filed, or for that matter, cases that are actually being pulled? Meron po ba tayong indicators of how that memorandum is now being felt in our justice system?
Robbie, yan, first step yan out of 100 steps towards that goal. Kasi, yung natutunan natin dati pa rito sa ating law enforcement, may problema talaga. Yung mga templates na pag-filing of cases and arresting, sabihin natin yung bypass template, talagang naus na eh. Kinakailangan talaga i-improve natin yung reasonable certainty kasi naging trabahong tamad na. Basta't hindi, walang mahuli, plantahan. Pagka naplantahan na, paplantahan pa ng paputok para ng explosives para hindi na sila makalabas sa kulungan. Hindi na dapat ganoon eh. Kaya nga itong reasonable certainty of conviction na aming nilalagay dyan is a step towards heavier case build-up para masigurado tayo, pag nag-file tayo ng kaso, ang certainty of conviction napakataas. So nangyayari kasi ngayon, binibilang nila a success ang plea bargain. Pero may mga tao nagpi-plea bargain dahil wala naman sila kasalanan. Tapos nila, nakakulong sila, kaya nagpi-plea bargain sila. We just want to be honest about it. Alam mo, ang laman ng kulungan natin, hindi naman lahat guilty. Marami tayong mga tao wala namang kasalanan nasa kulungan ngayon. Yun yung aming gusto mangyari, na ang reasonable certainty of conviction ang maging standard para naman hindi ka lang probable cause tapos tatakbo na yung pulis baliwala na sa kanila. Kasi sa kanila ang kanilang standard kasi sa promotion ay marami silang naaresto at marami silang hinuli. Minsan hinuhuli na ng maling dahilan. Kaya gusto namin, pag itutuloy nyo, gusto nyo kasuhan ng tao, sigurado kayo sa ginagawa nyo. Kasi yun talaga ang dapat mangyari eh. We should not allow people to trifle with the liberty of man. Ang liberty is very important to us. And people wrongfully jailed is really a black eye on our justice system. Yun po yung ating sinasabi rito. We have to take care na bawasan naman natin o iwasan natin na may taong nakukulong na walang kasalanan. Dapat sigurado ka sa ginawa ng taong yun. Yun po yung sabi natin dito.
I think, sir, I think we all agree with that naman eh. I think what we're just looking for, kung meron kayong whether anecdotal or metrics on how things have gone from the prosecutors down to the police as far as that memo was concerned.
Okay naman. Siyempre marami namang hindi rin nag-agree sa amin. We respect your opinion, but we have to work with the system. Yan po yung aming in-introduce. Kaya ngayon, meron kaming case build-up na ina-undertake, may retraining kami ng police and prosecutors. Hindi kasi pwedeng disjointed ng police at prosecution. Dapat kasi kampihan. Hindi dapat nagtuturoan yan. Hindi dapat nagagalit ang piskal sa police tapos sinasabi, hindi nyo alam ang ginagawa nyo. Dapat turuan niya yung police. We have to be patient nga eh. Kasi you mismo, when you're a fiscal, you're supposed to be, you're an officer of the court and you have to guide these people who are protecting society on how to preserve evidence and build up a case. Yun po yung sinasabi namin dito. Hindi na pwede yung disjoint na yan na ang police at prosecution pinag-aaway pa. Hindi yung dapat nangyayari yan. Kaya itong reasonable certainty of conviction is actually an order on the prosecutors to improve their craft and to make sure that the police do their jobs. And the police also asked to do the same thing.
And to your point po, gaya nga po ng sinabi nyo, you were reminding this is just the first of many, many steps. But those steps, for the public, what are we counting on in terms of how will this reform eventually be manifest and measured by the public? Does it lead, for example, to KPIs? Does it lead to us being able to measure which prosecutors have still been lax in terms of filing cases? Does this lead to, you've established a higher standard, does that higher standard eventually lead to a more objective measure and a more tangible mechanism for accountability at the level of prosecutors and at the level of the police?
Robbie, it will lead to better police work and it will lead to a better case build-up for prosecutors. That's what it will lead to. It is designed to improve the system. And that probably we will have less jail congestion. Kasi kung ang ating tinitingnan lang ay pagpapalaki na tayo ng kulungan kasi hindi na kasya, hindi uubra yun. Kasi sabi ko nga, ang dami namang kulungan na walang laman eh. Hindi dapat puno. Pero punong-puno sila dahil mali yung nakakulong sa loob. Hindi naman tama yung kasalanan na binibintang ng mga tao. Ayun nga, kahapon, I was with a provincial director ng isang kapulisan, no? isang probinsya sa atin. Tinatanong ako about itong nangyayari na dinidismiss ng korte mga kaso sa bypass. Sabi ko sa kanila, tigilan nyo na yung bypass framework nyo kasi alam naman namin ang kalokohan na nangyayari dyan eh. It's common knowledge already to the judges kung ano nangyayari dito sa bypass. Kaya gandahan nyo ang police work nyo. Pag-aralan nyo talaga kung sino talaga yung totoong pusher, kung paano ginagawa yan, at mag-apply kayo ng search warrant. Kasi yun talaga dapat ang ginagawa dyan eh.
Yeah.
Yung bypass, ang daming areglong ginagawa, ang daming maraming paraan na ginagawa para mag-stick yung kaso. One mistake leads to the other. Yun ang problema dyan. Kaya inaalis na natin yung ganong klaseng template. We're trying to tell them, improve the police work. Hindi pwede yung trabahong yung trabahong padalos-dalos. Kinakailangan yung karapatan ng tao ay galang natin pagdating dito.
Secretary, sa segue na ako, no, doon sa war on drugs. Lilinawin ko lang, what's the status ba? Are we still dealing with the ICC? Kasi nag-issue ng statement, as you probably already know, yung chief prosecutor, si Karim Khan, and he's saying na it looks like the former President Duterte condoned and even encouraged some of the crimes that were committed in the war on drugs. Now, we understand na sinabi na rin ni President Marcos, that's it, we're not dealing with ICC anymore. Pero si Soldier naman, Menardo Guevara, sabi niya, lilinawin daw niya na ang nireject lang naman daw is the suspension of the probe. Hindi naman daw ang nireject yung appeal natin na wag nang ituloy yung probe. Ano ba talaga yung status nun? Are we still dealing with the ICC?
No, we're not dealing with them anymore.
Wala nang sagot yun. Hindi na natin sasagutin yung comment na yan ni Karim Khan. Okay.
Sir, so same question that we asked Soldier Menardo Guevara. If they do come here, the ICC investigators do come here and they try to do investigation, what is government policy as far as that is concerned?
Well, ang position ko dyan, sasalubungin ko na sa airport and accompany them on their trip back.
Oh, sasalubungin niyo pa, sir?
Salubungin ko sila para they can take the first plane out. Kasi,
Sir, what about...
Sir, do you mean, are you saying deportation? What do you mean, sir?
I-deport ba sila or what? Since you are in charge of BI
So, buwi na kayo. Wala kayong gagawin sa Pilipinas. Kami, kung meron kayong reklamo, file nyo sa amin.
No, but can they question civilians? Halimbawa, relatives of some of those killed.
Ano mga gamitin nila sa Pilipinas?
Ano pa?
Anong implementarity dito?
Sir,
They want to take legal system. What legal system will they use? Are they going to use their legal system? Whose legal system?
Pero can they collect statements?
What law will they use? Tell me. What law?
Sir, sorry, sir, you're getting a bit choppy. We need to backtrack a bit kasi we were losing you for a while. So, would you allow them to stay here and collect evidence or witnesses or
They're
statements?
not welcome here. They're not welcome.
Sir, what about investigating short of coming to the country? Kanina lang, we were talking about Arnie Teves possibly testifying before the Senate via Zoom. What about any investigation that's carried out virtually with none of the investigators necessarily stepping foot here? And I ask that also on the side of the citizens that they might reach out to. Is there anything that can bar citizens from participating in those investigations?
Well, it will lead to nowhere. Wala ang pupuntahan yun eh.
But it's clear.
Robbie, tell me, what legal system will they use when they try to talk to our people?
No,
They're going to use the Philippine legal system? As far as the Philippine legal system is concerned, they're not the ones who are authorized to ask those questions. They can ask them as journalists. Okay.
But The questions naman po, your concerns and questions are clear. I guess I'm asking on the other side of that question. Is there anything in our legal system that will prohibit and bar our citizens from participating in those investigations?
Well, they'll be committing usurpation of authority.
Yung civilian?
Yung
Even the
civilian?
civilians?
No. Ang sinasabi natin, itong ICC.
Okay. And you are, can you file a complaint kung sakasakali mangyari yan?
Well, we can file a complaint if that's the case.
But you cannot stop our civilians, for example, from going
No.
to...
Anybody, free speech.
Yes, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay lang. Diba?
But-
They can say what they want, but they cannot use our legal system.
Yes, sir. Sir, but just to be clear, kasi kanina you made a strong point that they are not welcome. When you say they are not welcome, are you saying that they are going to be deported on the first plane out, or are you saying
No,
you're not welcome? We won't bring up the ban.
They won't be deported. They just won't be allowed in.
They won't be allowed in the country.
Yes.
To leave the airport, you mean? Kasi sabi nyo, if they arrive, they will be escorted out.
Yes.
So,
We will accompany them so we can help them wait for their next plane out.
Okay.
Sir, pero ano pong implications noon? I suppose you thought about the implications as well with the international community. How do you think this is going to...
We're not member of the ICC, period.
Sige. Sige, pahabol ko na lang. Isa na lang. Still on the war on drugs. Is the DOJ monitoring what's happening in the investigation of the 9.7 billion shabu involving, na ngayon implicated na pati si PNP Chief Asurin na according to those guys who were told to go on leave, it was cleared out with them. The release of the wanted police officer, it was cleared out with General Asurin.
Yes, we're monitoring. And I made the research on what's happening already, and that was accurate. There was a statement coming from General Domingo that cleared from upstairs already. I know that. I know that for a fact that there was a statement made to that effect.
Sir, if you don't mind, sir, balikan ko lang yung sa ICC. Just for clarity, kasi sabi nga ninyo, they're not welcome, they're not exactly being deported, they're just not being allowed to stay in the country, and you also mentioned usurpation of authority. Pero if their argument is that they're here not to investigate as officials of the Philippine government, that would not be usurpation, di ba?
Hindi, ano yan they're imposing a legal system within the country that we are not a member of. Wala na tayong issue of complementarity rito, Edwin. Issue kasi dito talaga sa international complementarity. Pag wala tayong ties doon, wala na business dito. That's how we stand on the matter.
So in the event that they are escorted back to the airplane, what would the basis for that be? Undesirable aliens? I'm sorry. The legal parameters.
Well, yan, basta sabihin natin sa kanila, the activity that you wish to pursue in our country is not welcome.
Okay. Sir, kabig din ako. I need to ask also about Senator Leila de Lima. I'll bring it back in the context also of what we discussed earlier, the reasonable certainty of conviction. How does that principle and that standard apply to this? And I ask because also some lawyers and some advocates are saying, look, this is one case where wala nang mga witnesses at marami na nag-atrasa ng mga testimony. There seems to be some reasonable position here to say that maybe this is something that the DOJ can on its own review and will actually have the power and the mandate to say that, given our current standards, this is exactly one of an illustration of the kinds of things that the standard can help to mitigate, if not correct. What do you say about that opinion, that this can apply to such cases, if not this case in particular?
Robbie, alam mo, kung tingnan natin yung evidence na naka-file sa court, marami talagang testimonies na hindi naman nare-rebat. Some were nagkaroon ng di ba? There was one person who took back his word on what he said. I think this was a former NBI guy, no? But marami ibang testimonies hindi naman lahat eh. Mas marami pa na nakatayo na testimonies nakatayo pa sa korte than that you are trying to picture here. Hindi ho nawala lahat ng ebidensya, marami pa ho. That's why we cannot interfere with it. On the process na po yan, ginagalang po natin yung institutional integrity po nito. Matagal na ho itong kasong ito, ando na yung ebidensya sa korte, and let's leave it to the judge to decide. Huwag na ho natin daanin pa sa DOJ kasi almost rested naman ang kaso namin. In fact, rested na nga yung kaso namin pagdating sa ibang kaso dito kay Senator De Lima. It's her turn to present her evidence.
Pero sir, hindi ba nakapin yung kabuuan ng case ng gobyerno dun sa testimonya ni Rafael Ragos na he's the guy?
Hindi, he's not the only person who testified here. Maraming iba to. This is a wrong, the wrong impression. You're creating a wrong impression here. Hindi po ganoon ang takbo ng kaso.
Yes, sir, but he is the guy who directly implicated Lala De Lima.
That's one of them. Mas marami pa nag-implicate sa kanya, Ed. Let's be accurate about this. There are so many other witnesses who testified already against her. Kaya hindi lang iisa yan. Yung isa nag-withdraw. Kung meron pa 5 o 6 na sinasabi yung pareho. Hindi naman sila nag-withdraw. That doesn't change anything. The withdrawal does not change anything.
Okay. Just one last question. Not on this case per se, but on the process and what you envision with this new standard. Theoretically, the DOJ will have the power to review. And if you realize that here's a case, mukhang whatever led to this, mukha namang walang reasonable certainty of conviction dito, you can actively petition the courts and say to the courts that actually we're changing our minds here essentially. And on the other side of it, do we assume that for as long as a case is not withdrawn and you're not making any movements, you're still confident on the reasonable conviction, reasonable certainty of conviction here, whether or not this was filed under your time or in prior administrations?
It's Robbie, matagal na yung kinakailangan gawin talaga kasi yung notion of probable cause has been abused so many ways, in so many ways and so many for the longest time. So yung talagang isa sa kailangan i-correct sa sistema natin. Ang dami nga nakakulong na wala namang kasalanan dahil mayroon nag-testify tapos bila na nawawala na yung testigo. Pero ang tagal ng hearing, kahit wala na yung testigo, nakakulong pa rin yung tao kasi non-bailable. Kaya dapat yung reasonable certainty of conviction, we have to do it. We have to stick to it. Yung availability of witnesses have to be there. Kasi dapat alam talaga ng piskal yung ginagawa niya. Kasi marami na akong alam na kanyang kaso yung mag-a-appear, magkakaso ng rape, tapos pa-file ng kaso, magkakaso of arrest, pero naka-3 setting na para sa hearing. Hindi naman sumisipot na yung nagreklamo. Kaya yung reasonable certainty, mahalaga talaga yan na ma-identify talaga nila kung sino talaga yung nag-file ng kaso at kung talagang dapat talaga ikulong yung tao. Kasi hindi naman biro magpakulong ng tao Do you want to jail an innocent man? Sino sa inyo may gusto niyan? Na nagkukulong tayo ng tao wala kasalanan. Di ba wala naman sa atin may gusto niyan Kaya we are putting that rule, that standard, because we believe it is the way to deal with with our legal system. Ang talaga titindigan namin as prosecutors yung kaso kasi alam namin na kaya namin pa-convict yung tao dahil may kasalanan siya.
Okay. Secretary Remulla, sir, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla. And that is all we have for the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed will keep the conversation going. I'm Robbie Alampayo.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.